From blueprints to booming businesses, from groundbreaking to grand openings, this is Beyond the Blueprint. Join host Brad Howard as he takes you behind the scenes of growth and development in Mooresville, Lake Norman, and beyond. We're talking with the decision makers, the planners, the visionaries shaping our communities, giving exclusive insight into what happens before, during, and after projects that define our region. The future is being built right now. Let's go beyond the blueprint.
Good Friday afternoon, and thank you to those tuning in on the radio on 105.9 FM, 100.7 FM, 1400 AM, on social media, on WSICnews.com, and on demand with the WSIC News app. This is Beyond the Blueprint, and I'm your host, Brad Howard. Today, we have a good friend in the studio, someone whose story perfectly captures what this show is all about: leadership, service, and building something meaningful. Bryan Viger is with us today. Bryan's a Marine Corps veteran who went on to become head of Dodge Motorsports, leading championship programs in NASCAR and Formula Drift. He oversaw the Dodge Viper ACR's record-breaking runs that made automotive history, including breaking the 2-minute barrier at Miller Motorsports Park. But here's what makes today compelling. Bryan left that prestigious career and moved to Mooresville, where I got to know him. He founded Octane LLC, became a commercial real estate investor, and has organized charity events raising thousands for vulnerable children. Through it all, he stayed true to his Marine Corps values. Today, we're talking about what it takes to lead at the highest levels, reinvent yourself, and build a legacy in your community. Today's conversation is about career, community, and what matters most. Let's dive in. Thank you. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you in the studio today. I've known you for a little while, but a lot of folks in our community don't really know who you are, where you've come from, or what's shaped who you are before you came to Mooresville. So let's start with the Marine Corps. You were born in Michigan, went to the Marines. Help us from there.
Well, it started out with how it'll end full circle. I grew up with a father who worked his way up through General Motors as an executive electrical engineer. And then one day when I was probably 11, 12 years old, came home for dinner and said he's put his resignation in and was going to go into the golf business. And then, my mom, I think, dropped her fork and spoon. And back then was making really good money. To start a new company was going to be talking about macaroni and cheese and meatloaf compared to a life we were used to living. But it was my dad's passion. And he quickly realized that he couldn't make any money in a retail store when you're making high six figures in the automotive industry to start your one little storefront in retail. So he quickly realized that the money isn't made like McDonald's in the hamburgers, it's made in the real estate. So he went off and they started building stores and then accumulating real estate. So at 13 years old, I was lucky enough not to play with my friends every day after school. I got to go to a job site and work for half what everyone else was getting paid and work twice as hard. Hated him for it then, but love him for it now. The biggest takeaway was he took the time to make sure that I got to work with all the trades, electricians, the carpenters, concrete guys. And then, I made good money. I saved. He learned the value of $1. He taught me P&L at like 15 years old. And although I hated school, I know I didn't want to work for him because I couldn't see the long term. I just felt like I was getting used and abused. But I came home and said I was going to join the Marine Corps. It's always been a passion of mine. Marines was my only choice. And I needed something to break me down and give me focus in life. And boy, did the Marine Corps ever do that. But I went in the Marine Corps. I served a little over 4 years and, obviously Desert Storm took off. I had 2 tours in Somalia and decided to get out and come home. And I got an opportunity when we first got out. I had to fill out an application to General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. And I took the job at Chrysler. But what's funny is the gentleman was calling me to be a part-time supervisor. So I went to Michigan and finished my degree, my undergrad. And I just thought, I had a little concrete company going. I was making all kinds of money in the early 90s. You could throw a dart at a dartboard and hit a stock and make $3,000-$4,000 in the day with the dot-com boom. So I figured I was going to retire by the time I was 26, and I couldn't figure out why everyone else couldn't figure this out and was working to 60, 70 years old. So I quickly realized the economies do crash. There's ups and downs. But you're young in your 20s, you think you're invincible. So a funny little part of that story is Chrysler was calling. A gentleman on the phone with over 35 years was asking to be a part-time supervisor. So I was making about $140,000 a year in concrete, plus I was working midnights in the plant. So I thought, and my investments, I thought I was just, like I said, retire at 25, 26 years old. But I quickly realized that's not the reality. And my father doesn't cuss, but the way I talked to this gentleman on the phone, like, how long you been working there? How much money did you make? Asking all the wrong questions. My dad folded the newspaper, looked at me, and I knew I was in trouble. So I hung up the phone, and he had me sit down on the coffee table face to face. And he said, son, I thought I raised you better than that. I know the Marine Corps taught you better than that. So what you're going to do is, you're not ready to be a supervisor. I suggest you go there and work on the floor. So I had to go down to 8 Mile, back where the offices were, in Iacocca's old office. And I had to go in there and find this person that I spoke to that way, disrespectfully. And I asked the man for his forgiveness. And I said, you know what? Give me an hourly job. He says, you want to give up a $60,000 salary position to work on the floor for $14 an hour? I said, yes, sir. My father always taught me, never ask a man to clean the toilet you haven't cleaned yourself. Work harder when no one's watching, and treat every dollar like it's your own. And so I did. I started out on the floor. And then within a year, I was a supervisor. Within 3 years, I ran the department I hired in at. And I went off and finished my master's degree from Central Michigan, and never looked back. And I tried to get into motorsports for the better part of 8 years. I got told no. And then eventually it got me to the point where I got to do a pitch in front of Lasorda, which is our CEO at the time. And he asked me if I could have any job in the company, which one would I want? And I told him. And
did you tell him yours?
Yeah.
Did you really?
No.
Oh,
no. I did make a mistake though. And I said, am I in the wrong office? I said, I think you're the CEO. I think if you say I can have the job, I can have it. And he didn't find that very funny. So about 2 years later, I ended up getting the position, and I had to take a 2-step demotion from manufacturing into marketing.
And into the marketing, when you took the demotion, how did that progress to the next step?
The next step was I went into the motorsports side, but I went to the Dodge brand, and then I was dotted line to the motorsports side of things, and pretty much just had to do the gopher work, run paper, do all the marketing, buy offs, make sure that the budgets were submitted properly for my boss to go through the finance department to make sure that we structured. And, just a lot of busy work. But the company was going through a turmoil at the time, and we were ready to get bought out. So that's where the career started to really catapult at that point.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to dive a little deeper into your time there at Chrysler on the motorsports side, and learn what impact you had. And then I know you've got some cool stories you've told me over the past, so we're going to share those. This is Brad Howard, Beyond the Blueprint. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond the Blueprint. I'm Brad Howard, and we're in the studio with my good friend Bryan Viger. Before the break, we were talking about Marine Corps' early career history in Michigan and the automotive side. Now we're going to make the transition and talk more about the motorsports side. Your time as head of Dodge Motorsports, that's a big deal. So explain to us what that means.
Well, most people think that the motorsports job has a lot to do with racing, which it does on the surface from the fans' point of view and from the marketing side of it, because we are putting a product on television or in, the fans in real life to watch the activities of the race. But I learned really quickly, be careful what you pray for, because I wanted this job, like I said earlier in our last segment. 8 years of an overnight success waiting for this position. But once I received it, I mentioned that the company was going through turmoil. So we had gotten bought out by Daimler. So Chrysler became Daimler Chrysler. Then it became Cerebus bought us. Then it went Fiat. So it was FCA. And now today in 2025, it's Stellantis. It's a French-owned company. So with all that being said, the first part of the turmoil, my CEO at the time and the director, head of motorsports at the time, both sought to see other opportunities, right? So there was transitions and changing happening in the company. Leadership changes have different visions. People align with a vision or they don't. So for whatever reasons, people moved and moved on or moved to different positions within the corporation. So at this time, I was, like I said, I was just a middle manager and pretty much doing whatever my boss asked me to do and any whatever task that is, unlike any other job in America, corporate job. What was ironic was Ralph Gilles became the CEO of Dodge. He was the head of design for Chrysler. Amazing man. Absolutely, probably one of the best people I've ever worked for. Was compassionate, was caring, was mentoring, took his opportunity to allow you to fail or get close to failure and then learn from your mistakes and then would guide you along the way. So working for Ralph Gilles was a complete blessing. But it was also a curse because as a young man taking on what was a minuscule responsibility with regards to a budget, overnight turned into tens of millions of dollars, if not into the $100 million range. So managing those programs, you've mentioned a few in the beginning, but it was actually NASCAR, Cup and Nationwide at the time. We did a little bit with drifting, but it wasn't much. But we did have Travis Pastrana was our driver for Global Rallycross. And then one of my pet projects was Supercross racing, which is two-wheel racing. We took that on, and that started in January and would end around April. And then NASCAR would start in February as far as the season, and that would end in the fall, late fall. So basically, I went from being in the office and doing everybody's runaround list and doing whatever minuscule things I was responsible for at any given time. Once Ralph put me in the position, I was able to put a lot of the ideas to realization to a lot of ideas, like the website, how we interact with fans and what the branding and marketing looks like. And then I had the budget. Then I started dealing with driver contracts, which I knew nothing about legal other than the 4 classes I took in my undergrad. And that was about it. And I hated law. So I was like, this is not for me. But I learned a lot. And it wasn't the drivers. Like I respected all the drivers and I love the team and the camaraderie with Penske Racing. Like I miss every one of those guys, even to this day. I mean, it was like a family on the road. It's a circus on the road. Every weekend you're there, you see the same people. It's kind of like a village of our family, a village of family that just kind of travels from state to state. And we see the same people from Thursday to Sunday every week. I averaged about 50 to 60 days home on my pillow every year because my NASCAR would start in February. Like I said, Supercross in January. That's every weekend. A lot of weekends I do double up. So
no, in this program, what all are you doing at this time?
So
like what is it to be Bryan back during these years?
So I have 40 hours worth of work to do for the corporation as far as running budgets and planning and forecasting and all that stuff. That has to be done. But I would leave the office on Wednesday and get to in market. We would do media days. We would have our sponsors come in. So the sponsors want to meet the drivers and, you have all that dog and pony stuff that you have to do, which I don't mean that to sound bad. It's just part of the deal. Everyone wants their time with, one of the drivers or with Roger Penske or whatever. But it creates the value, and the value is not really the racing. I mean, from my perspective, the real reason you're sponsoring is because you're having access. So when you you come to a race and let's just say you got a salesman in your company and they're trying to get a hold of a decision maker or C-suite person. It could take that salesman 6 months, a year to get to the decision maker if they ever get to him. And within racing, you're stuck in a suite for 4.5 hours with this person. So
or longer.
And a lot of good business takes place there.
Right.
Like when Chrysler, we used to have Mobil 1 as our sponsor, and it was now Chevrolet sponsor. They had Pennzoil. Well, we were able to do a deal with them to say, look, we'll do all first fill. That means every vehicle that comes off the line will have a Pennzoil product in it. And then all of our 3,600 dealerships will be able to compete with the 10-minute oil change. We're going to restructure the entire dealerships to be able to do quick oil changes instead of going there for 2 hours and spending $150. You can be competitive with the guy down the street that's got the Uncle Ed's or the 10-minute oil change. And then Shell Pennzoil will give them a product that they could sell at a profitable rate. And it just becomes B2B. Everything is about a win-win situation. And like I said about the drivers and stuff, like, yes, I respect them. And, all your friends think you got the coolest job in the world, but you're on a plane, you're in a hotel, and you're at a sweaty racetrack and you're just making introductions. That's when you're actually doing the work. But meeting Roger Penske for the first time, I was terrified. I mean, this is a man from Detroit that, is an icon in Detroit, much like Mike Ilitch. And growing up as a father and a businessman, I really was nervous meeting him, but I think I learned more from him and his organization. I think in 18 months than I learned in all of my college. I just to watch that man, the way he respects people, he talks to them, he knows everyone's name. He always does a fair deal with everyone he interacts with, and to be surrounded with men like him and Walt Zarnicki and like I said, Ralph Gilles. I couldn't have been more blessed. I mean, I learned a lot just through being around those people and watching how they interact. And I had a lot of responsibility of, look, we are trying to bring value to our partners. This is not about a sticker on a race car. This is about bringing B2B, business to business, or it's about opening access and doors that they couldn't get otherwise. So that's pretty much the job in a nutshell. All the other stuff goes with it. Yes, there's contracts. Yes, there's negotiations. Yes, there's livery, how the car looks, the marketing, what's going to look like in the commercials, what we're allowed to do. Being an automotive company, Miller Lite being one of our sponsors, of course, you can imagine there's a lot of legalese there between drinking and driving. I mean, I'm splitting the razor blade on a lot of different things because of our sponsorships, but it was fun.
Yeah, no, there were movies and you did a lot of the placement in the movies for the cars, and explain to people too how paid placement works in films and movies and TV shows.
Yeah. So we have a whole division that does that media buy, but because of the racing side, there's a lot of cohesiveness between the engineering side and the cars and how they get in the movies. But most people think, I put a drink or a car in a movie. They're just paying a lot of money. Well, they are, but they're not doing it the way you think. So you supply the assets, you supply the cars, and there's guys there that know way more about this than I do, but this is the part that I understand. So the cars that get crashed, the highlighted cars from the museum, like the Challengers, Chargers, the vintage cars. But how it really works is anybody ever sees a commercial for like General Motors and Transformers or us in Fast and Furious, it's literally a 20 second video or commercial for the movie. And then on the end, it says, visit your local Chevrolet or Dodge dealer or whatever. You're taking that media buy on the nose and you're spending that money in mass marketing across the globe, or especially within the continental United States. So there's that. Plus all the engineering that goes behind it. Hey, we want to take a car and we want to tow this huge safe, what looks like a safe behind it. And we're going to do these high speed turns and do this and that. That all sounds great on a green board or a whiteboard that you want to do, but practicality wise, there's a lot of engineering on how do you make all that happen. Chrysler has some of the best engineers in the world, and they get advice from them, and they work collaboratively with the movie studio, and they figure it out.
Yeah, and people don't really think about it, but I know that my sons love the cars and the TVs, and then all of a sudden that becomes their favorite car. So by you doing what you did, you're influencing the company's working to influence the buying patterns of that future customer.
Exactly. And that's where you want to start. I mean, that's where the Dodge Dart was supposed to be, with Travis Pastrana driving it in Global Rallycross, was get an affordable Dodge that they can get into. That's cool. Right. And then from there, then they want to move on to the Challenger. Then they want to move on to a Viper. Then they want to move on to, as they age, I mean, you're a BMW guy. So you started somewhere with your fascination and love for that car. And then you start to progress into the more sporty versions, the M, the whatever. And then next thing you know, there's just no other brand for you. But somebody captivated you young,
right,
somewhere,
right,
and caused you either put a poster on a wall or something.
And that was you behind the scenes. You were the pulling the strings there.
Yeah, you just got to make it cool and relative, right? And affordable, which is affordable, all relative
right.
Today. I mean, my Lord, the stuff. I'm like, wow, that cost how much?
Yeah. So we're going to come right back. Take a quick break here. We're with Bryan Viger. When we come back, we're going to talk about you moving south. Moving south, how you ended up here, and what you're doing. So Brad Howard, Beyond the Blueprint. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back. This is Brad Howard, Beyond the Blueprint, and we are with my friend Bryan Viger. So Bryan, this is the part where we start shifting the story to how you came to Mooresville. So how did you get to Lake Norman? You had this great career up there. You're influencing buying decisions and product placement in movies. And let's see, there was a list we didn't even cover. Newbring broke the speed record.
Yeah, the Viper broke the record for the ACR at Newbring, which is a funny story because most people hire professional drivers. One of our actual engineers on the car is our race car driver, and he broke the record in the Viper ACR, which now it's been broke by a couple different cars. We haven't made Vipers in a while. Though they haven't made Vipers in a while. I'm no longer there, so they haven't made them.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
yeah. So how did you make the decision to come? Other than maybe Race City USA, or was there more to it?
I fell in love with the town, to be honest, because my mother's come down here, my mom and dad both. But my mom says over and over, she says, "Oh my God, if you blindfolded me and drugged me and woke me up and I was driving down the street anywhere in Mooresville in Iredell County or Cornelius is more like our town, but says it feels like home. It looks just like Rochester Hills, Michigan. It looks, the trees, the way, the weather, everything."
I don't think it snows quite as much.
No, that's the other part. That's a beautiful thing is our snow is like 6 minutes long compared to 6 months. But other than that, it looks the same. And it has a good town feel. But yes, that's what got me down here, was coming down here quite a bit for, again, Penske and, a couple days a week for the meetings we've had. And I just fell in love with the place. And when we got out of NASCAR in 2013, we won the championship for Cup. We were out. So I was given the opportunity to pick the job I wanted. We were just coming out with these little work trucks, the Pro Masters, and going from the job I had, because I did a 24-hour Le Mans in France too. I forgot to mention that. So a month of the year I'd be in France to do that race, like the Ford versus Ferrari, that race. So people that don't know what that Le Mans is, but that race, the global race, 24 hours. And when we were out of NASCAR and we were getting out of the Viper scene, we were getting, Viper was starting to wind down, just for national highway safety rules and complexities of building a car like that in that day and age was just getting harder and harder. So I saw the writing on the wall and I said, "Hey, look, I want to spend more time with my family. I've missed every wedding, every one of my kids' birthdays. I'm never home." So I decided to take over the commercial sales for the Mid-Atlantic and, just became a cog in the wheel there. But it was like watching grass grow. I mean, going from what I was used to, high speed, low drag, 50 balls in the air, getting tugged in 100 different directions. I work best under high stress, and it calms me. I'm okay when I have a million decisions to make and I have everyone tugging and asking for 5 minutes of your time. I'm okay in that. What I'm not okay with is lackadaisical, set my week on a schedule, have meetings with time in between, too much time to think. It just drives me nuts. Like I can't do it. And so I took the job at the commercial truck sales, and I did that for about 18 months. But I did pick, ironically, it's funny, I did pick the worst one. We have 9 business centers at Chrysler, at least we did at that time. I chose number 9. The worst one. I could have picked California. I could have picked any one of them because I worked hard and I was given the opportunity. Hey, pick wherever you want to go and we'll make it happen. And I picked the 9th one, and I'll never forget. My boss asked me, "Why in the heck are you picking that one?" I said, "Well, first of all, I don't know anything about truck sales. Number 2, I don't know anything about the dealership side of the business yet. And what's the worst that can happen? I come in 9th next year?"
Right.
Right.
You were setting the bar high.
No one's going to look at me and say, "Oh, here's the Wonder Boy," or whatever that, everyone wanted to see you fall. People that see you, they're happy when you're up here.
You're going from 9 to 8.
Yeah. That's an accomplishment.
That's an accomplishment.
So within a year, almost 14 months, we were top 3. And it's something I learned from Mr. Penske and watching his organization and my boss. I'm not that smart. Like I never claim to take the credit. I'm just not. I am smart enough to not be the smartest guy in the room. And that's what I learned from these men that I idolize to the point of I respect. So all I did was I said, well, what would RP do? What would Ralph Gilles do in this situation? And I just do what I saw them do. So I would go to my top 3 dealers that are doing high volume and the epitome of where every dealership should be. I just simply copied and pasted what they did. I worked on the floor. I picked up cigarette butts. I worked on Saturdays. I worked as a salesman. I worked in the F&I office. I don't care if it was a holiday, I was there. And the dealer principals or the owners of the dealer were like, "I've never seen a corporate guy work on a Saturday, let alone a holiday." And I said, "I'm used to motorsport. I don't care what day it is, I'm working." So I took that work ethic and then went to my bottom 3 to 5 stores. And all I did was copy and paste what they did in the bottom stores. And then I got a B2B contact.
Right.
"Hey, your service guy, here's your service contact. You call him if you have a question. Don't call me because I don't know anything about the service. This guy's been doing it for 30 years. I don't know, but I can make the connection." And next thing you know, the bottom stores started to really rise. I mean, how much can I make the top 5 stores get better? 5, 8% increment. But there is endless amount of opportunity for the lower guys to get better in their volume and their service and their, we call them their service reviews or their sales reviews.
And bring the whole division up.
Right. So once I did that, I was kind of bored. And then a good friend of mine, Mark Daly from Petty, called me and asked me to come over and work for the Petty organization, which they do a lot more than racing. They do a lot of interactive marketing. Although there's something that I failed at. I let them down, I think, myself. They say I didn't, but I personally, my personal goals I did. Mm-hmm. I went there and they're trying to sell programs to people. And I'll just say it's a lot easier when you have the corporation behind you and you're cutting millions of dollars worth of checks. Everybody's your friend. But when you're on the other side and it's like kind of like I learned in a commercial real estate. When you're looking for an investor, it's completely different than when you're the guy with the money. It's just a different outcome. And I did horrible. And after I did a 2-year contract. Now the consulting side, I was great. EBITDA, cash flow, P&L.
Right.
How do we look at the business? How do we run smoother? How do I get rid of redundancies? Like that's what I was used to. That I love going into companies and making them more profitable because I don't have a problem telling the owner their baby's ugly. Like every one of their yes men around them.
It's not helping them.
No. I mean, I work for Langtree Commercial Development and I work for you, Brad, and we're friends. But if you ever ask me, "Hey, Bryan, what do you think about this idea that I want to do? And I'm really passionate about it. What do you think I'm going to say if I'm a W-2 employee working for Brad Howard? Boss, it's the best idea I've ever heard of. Let's do it." Being a consultant, I can lay it out there and say, "Well, when everyone's gone, let's talk about it." And then I can pick it apart and be the devil's advocate and say, "Look, I just want you to go into a deal eyes wide open." So that's how I kind of got down here was I went to Petty. And then after the 2-year agreement was up, the consulting agreement, I started my own company and I really wanted to give back. So I really wanted to learn Dove House. I love cars. We putting on 200-300 car shows up all around Iredell County. Partnered up with Neil from Hot Rods and Hops. He was generous enough to show me what I wanted to do. And then we would I wouldn't take a penny. Everybody would register for the car show and they would pay directly to Dove House. We were able to raise, $9,000-$10,000 for them. I didn't take a nickel. I actually spent a lot of money in my own pocket, which I never would say publicly while I was doing it, but it just felt good to do it and give back. I was just happy to be with my kids every day and help them with their homework and be home. So my kids were able to help me do it too as well, which was really nice. And it helped me meet people like you and meet people in the community. And it gave me a reason to go knock on someone's door and talk to them. I didn't have to. It wasn't going there with a business proposition. I wasn't asking for anything. I was asking for ways to give back to the community, which kind of catapulted me into a lot of meetings I probably shouldn't have been in. But it also made a lot of relationships and friendships that I still have to this day, and you're one of them. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's when we met, was when you were doing the magazine.
Yep.
So, this is it's a good point to take a break. We're coming. We have a break right now. We'll be right back. Brad Howard, Beyond the Blueprint, and we will come back talking about the real estate vision for the region and looking ahead.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. And we're back. Brad Howard, Beyond the Blueprint, with Bryan Viger. It's the final segment. We've covered a lot of ground today. We started in Michigan, then went to the Marines, then talked about head of motorsports with that division of Chrysler. And now you're in North Carolina, Octane, and have a magazine that you're raising money for charity with. And I was wondering what happened, because the magazine was very popular, very successful. But what happened?
Well, it was brutal in the beginning. Lake Norman was really starting to really explode, and the magazine's sole intention, it's probably changed. It changed what his identity was like 3 or 4 times because it was new to me. And my intention was never really to make a salary off of it. I wanted to give back to the community, and I couldn't get that to resonate. So finally I get it after I left Petty was 16. So from 16 to 18, the magazine was taking off, right? So I would have like a couple of half-page ads, a couple of full-page, but it was month to month, and it was just draining. So I said, you know what? I got to change this thing into what I'm really passionate about. I'm not trying to do these other magazines around Lake Norman are great, but that's not me. I'm not going to talk about how to do a flower bed or how you're going to design your home or none of that stuff. I care less about personally. So I love cars. So I said, you know what? My daughter actually, she's 17 now, and she's like a little gearhead. She's like, Dad, why don't we just do car shows? I was like, that's a pretty good idea. So I hooked up with Hobby Lobby. They're closed on Sunday off 150, and counted the spots, like 312 spots. And next thing you know, the first weekend we had turning people away. So I was charging $50 a car, but I would never have them pay me. So I had a direct link to Dove House, and they would pay directly to Dove House. So people were really open to say, oh, wow, this guy's not giving to charity. I'm using air quotes. And then take $5 and give it to charity and keep 45 for himself.
Right.
Right. So all the money was going where it needed to go, which made it an success. And it was an opportunity to work with my kids and some guys in the community. And that all worked out great. Then I started going about the fall of 2019. I started going to the car dealerships, and the product made sense, right? So I'm giving back to a charity that a lot of these car dealerships, I know Randy Marion's a huge, huge proponent of Dove House, and he's at all their banquets and whatever, and very giving. Plus the family used to own, Lake Norman Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. They were wonderful people at the Dove House, and it just kind of everything aligned, right? It was no big deal. But then we start doing our talks, and then everyone knows what happened in, 2020. I start getting verbal commitments. Well, then March rolls around. let's wait 2 weeks because this thing that's happening, 2 weeks, 2 weeks to 2 months, 2 months to 2 months. It just, yeah. But here's the thing. This is the kind of the crappy part about having moral fiber and integrity is I had a bunch of small businesses that were paying $90 a month or $110 a month for the local HVAC guy or whatever. Well, they had ads and it was costing me, to mail 10,000 magazines to everyone's mailbox every month.
Right.
I'll let you Google how much that cost. The postage alone was not cheap, let alone manufacturing a 36-page high gloss, good weight book. It was not cheap.
Right.
So that year I lost about $100,000 because I made a commitment to these small companies. I'm like, I can offset these cheaper prices because when the dealerships come in, they're going to cover the nut of the book. I got enough to pay my kids $400 or $500 a month to help me. And I'm happy because I was not doing that to make money. So I was being able to do all the car shows and then make good money for the charity. So anyway, after 2020, it was a horrible, part of my career that was like, wow, I'm not invincible. Like I tried to do something and set out to start something and I failed miserably because I was not, what did Biden call it? Non-essential. Yeah. I was a non-essential business. So whatever. So I had to rethink what I was doing. And it's funny. We opened this whole conversation with how did it start? It started with my dad having the guts to walk away from a 6-figure job in the early 80s with 2 free company cars to start his own little golf shop to turning it into real estate. And now he laughs at me because he's like, you could have just took this over when you were out of the Marine Corps and think where you would be today. Yeah, it's like buying Bitcoin at $50. I don't want to think about it.
I like to think that your experiences along the way are what made you or make all of us who we are, all the good, all the bad. It makes you the person you are right now. I
think you're absolutely correct because I wouldn't be sitting here with you and all the people that I met. I would not know today if I would have done that. And so I took it upon myself. I said, you know what? I'm going after my passion. I want to go into something that I'm passionate about since I was a young kid, which is commercial real estate. And I'm going to get involved with it some way, shape, or form. I think I even came to you once and said, look, I'll work for free. I don't care. I just want to be in every meeting and I want to understand how it happens because I learned what I learned from Mr. Penske and from being in those meetings with the CEO of Dodge. Even though I was the kid against the wall because I wasn't, enough title to sit at the big boy table, I could still watch and see how things transpired. And I learned more in those environments than I ever did, trying to figure it out in a school book. Like I'm thankful for those things. So I decided that, okay, I'm going to offer my services for real estate. I did businesses. I did car dealerships. I did pizza places. I did anything that had a small business, HVAC guys. I did a couple plumbers. I did a small home builder that did, 4 or 5 homes a year. But that was just driving me crazy because there's no processes. And I'm like, there's no processes to audit. I mean, you're just doing it by the seat of your pants and everything's on a napkin and the backside of a receipt. Like there's too much of an uphill climb for me there, but there wasn't any money. I mean, he's enough to provide for his family, but he wasn't looking to scale and that's just what he wanted to do. But then I got involved with some of your projects. I got involved with a couple different developers and builders. And I met a guy from the West Coast through some of my racing who owned a company and he's doing storage caves here down in the Southeast. And he was once part of a company called Lux Locker, which he sat on the board of directors and he ran. They built half of Las Vegas, this VC firm. And to them, a couple $100 million was like this. We don't have time for this. This is a weight on our investment portfolio.
Right.
Yeah. To be that big. I mean, to them, it's like, yeah, we don't want to deal with this. So this gentleman took a buyout and agreed on paper that he would not compete in their realm, but he wanted to do the storage stuff. So him and I connected through a few other people that I met. And I just helped raise the capital. I don't even raise the capital. I can't even say that because I'm not a whatever. I just make introductions like, hey, you should talk to this guy. I want to do some boat and RV storage. There you go. You should just talk to this person. And I just make the connection.
Right. Strategy and planning.
Exactly. And I don't get anything for it other than I get to understand how it works. And now I think I spent $5,000 this year, and I took a whole cradle to grave on flex space, on understanding it, how it works, how you plan it, how you get approvals, site plans, the whole 9 yards. I just invested in myself, and then now I'm working for a company called Rock Solid as a 1099. They hired me to help them with their processes. They're the largest, they're the only supplier for Lowe's in North Carolina and half of South Carolina. So any decks, siding, and windows they do for them. So if you ever get that from Lowe's, that's the company that's doing it. And he's scaling pretty big, and he wants to go back and do a light commercial and or affordable residential verticals. Mm-hmm. So I signed on with, I will come here. I'll help write your processes, get your structure for your company for the Lowe's side. And then I will want to work with you side by side. And then I want to do this year, we're going to do one house together and just see if we work well together. And then I'd like to do some of this flex space, because I think flex space is the key, especially in Mooresville. I mean, where else can you earmark 3-4 acres and you can have electrician, handyman, a granite guy, and 3 spaces, 4 or 5 spaces of guys, just their wives, husbands, their wives want their classic cars out of the garage and put somewhere else. And then you've got a dance studio, you've got a karate studio, you got a pizza place, you got a brewery. I mean, it's such a beautiful commercial real estate vehicle. I love it. So that's kind of where my focus is now.
So your future is, so where you're heading now and heading into the future is these industrial flex buildings. You plan to build them on as many sites as you can find between now and when you decide to retire.
Yeah. But I want to do it a little differently. Okay. A lot of people, a lot of developers that I meet, like it's all the same, right? You get the investment, you get the investors, you work out your IRR, you work out who's getting paid what. And it's so mechanical. And when you get bigger, I noticed that there's some guys I was fortunate to work with, they don't even think about it. It's just dollars and cents in a machine. And it's all about planning and timing and getting approvals. And I would like to do something where I know what the struggle was for me to get in this business. And it was a lot of time, a lot of working for free, a lot of just shutting up, which is probably
it's hard for you.
Anybody listening, it's hard for me to do.
Yeah. If anybody that knows Bryan, that is a reach.
It is a reach. But I will tell you this. I met a guy out of Texas that's doing it right. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of fine tune his model. And what he does is he goes in kind of like a Hyde Park type deal, but he builds smaller units, and he builds, let's just say he's got 40,000 square feet and there's 4 buildings. They're all 10,000, each one are 10,000. He evenly divides them up. He goes in, gets a triple net lease. He gets a triple net lease on a building, and he'll find your son, Brad. Your son wants to get into commercial real estate.
Right.
But he doesn't have millions of dollars. He doesn't have the contacts. But what he can do is he can buy this building that we lease to a plumber, and it's 1 unit for $379,000 with a tenant. And he can come in and buy that 1 unit and own a piece of commercial real estate and learn how it works.
Right.
And then it works for me and whoever our investors are, because we're going to sell 50% of them.
Right. What helps you finance the deal.
Help me finance the deal. And then we hold the rest for triple net.
Right. And then do you come back and buy those back at a later date?
No, we sell the rest of them out, but we always own the land. They're always paying the land lease.
I like it.
So you don't ever really get out of the deal. All I care about is the land. McDonald's does not care about the funny building on top of it.
Right.
They care about the dirt.
They care about the dirt. Absolutely.
So that's kind of a few things I've got. I've probably got a whole business plan written of 30 pages of how I would change that. And I'm excited to talk to a few people and present it. But one thing I learned in this business is you got to be careful, because everyone wants the good ideas, but it's really easy to get boxed out.
That's right.
That's right. So in God I trust, but everything else, sign a piece of paper.
All right. Well, very good. That's going to be it for today's show, and we'll be back next Friday. But again, Bryan, thank you so much. And just to mention real fast, if you want to learn more, just message us, or if you want to give out any information.
Yeah, I can. Thank you, Brad, for having me. It's been a pleasure. And you can contact me at Bryan, BRYAN.octane @USA.com.
and we will see you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you.